All right, so today we're going to look at section 5.2. The essential question for today's lesson is, how can proportions help you decide when things are fair? So the meaning of the word proportional is an equation stating that two ratios are equal would tell you that it's proportional. So when you work toward a goal, your success is usually proportional to the amount of work you put in. That can apply to your grades in class. So if you work hard and do your homework and study for tests, then your grade will go up. The objectives today will be looking at equivalent ratios to determine whether two ratios form a proportion. And we're going to look at cross products to determine whether two ratios form a proportion. This cross product property, is really the bulk of what we'll be doing today in class. So if you turn to your record and practice book, section 2 for chapter 5, we're going to start with activity 1. Okay, so whenever it says work with a partner, we know that we are working in our table groups. Excuse me. So it says tell whether two ratios are equivalent. First part. If they are not equivalent, we're going to change the next day to make them equivalent. And then we're going to explain our reasoning. So 3 parts to these problems. So let's look at problem A. It says on the first day you pay $5 for 2 boxes of popcorn. The next day you pay $7.50 for 3 boxes of popcorn. And the way we write these up is we're going to say $5 for 2 boxes. Next day, $7.50 for 3 boxes. And in order to see if these are equivalent, we're going to look at our cross products. When we say cross products, we mean we're going to multiply across the equal sign in a diagonal. Okay, so I like to do the top one first, so 2 times $7.50. In order to do this, I am very okay with you guys using a calculator. Okay, so we're going to take 2 and multiply it by $7.50. So 2 times $7.50. And that's going to equal $15. And then we're going to take our second 2 products and we're going to multiply 5 times 3. And that also gives us 15. So are these fair? Are they equal proportions? Yes, because 15 is equal to 15. So we don't have to change the next day because it says if not equivalent, change the next day. So since they are equal, 15 is equal to 15, we have 2 equivalent proportions. So let's look at problem B. On the first day, it takes you 3.5 hours to drive 175 miles. The next day, it takes you 5 hours to drive 200 miles. So once again, we're going to be looking at our cross products. We're going to look at these diagonal numbers here, and then these diagonal numbers there. I like to draw the ribbons there because it really helps me visualize what it is that I'm multiplying. So my top one here is going to be 175 times 5. So we're going to multiply 175 times 5. And that gives us 875. Now for our second, we're going to say 3.5 times 200. Now the way I can digitally or represent 3.5 is by saying 3.5, because 0.5 would be 1/2. So I'm going to multiply 3.5 times 200, and my answer is going to be 700. Okay, so are these equal? They are not equal. Okay, so they are not equivalent. So I need to fix this to make it equivalent. Okay, this gave me 875, and this gave me 700. If I change this number here to a different number and multiply it, what would I get? So I'm going to change that to 4 because I think if I drop 175, that might work, right? So I'm going to remultiply 175, and this time I'm going to multiply it by 4, and that's going to give me 700. So if I change this to 4, I would have 700 is equal to 700, and then it would be fair. How did I know to change this to 4? Well, I looked at 875 and I knew I was multiplying by 175, and it just made sense to me in my head that if I subtracted 175, it would get me to 700. You might want to try different things, different strategies, maybe changing the distance, increasing it. But remember, you can only change the next day numbers. You can't change your first day numbers. So let's look at C. This one says, on the first day you walk 4 miles and burn 300 calories. And then the next day you're going to walk 3 1/3 miles and burn 250 calories. Now, this 3 1/3 might give you a little bit of problem, but I'll show you how we can figure out how to represent it digitally. So I do my cross multiplying, and here I'm going to start with 1/3. So what I did is, an easy way to say is just 1 divided by 3, because that's what 1/3 is, right? And that's going to give me 33,333,333. So what I'm going to use as my multiplication number for 3 1/3 is 3.33. Okay? So let's say 300 calories, and we're going to multiply that by 3.33, and that's going to give me 9,099. And we're going to look at the second set here, and we're going to multiply 4 times 250, and that's going to give me 1,000. Now, it's not exactly proportional because we have that 3.33333. I don't know if it would make all that big of a difference if I went ahead and did 1 divided by 3 and then multiplied that by 300. So that's going to probably get you closer. And then let's see if we multiply that times. Yeah. So 1 divided by 3 equals, and let's add 3, right? So plus 3. So now we have 3.3, there's my 3, times 300. Did I divide? Sorry about that. Let's try this again. 1 divided by 3 equals, so let's add 3 and then multiply by 300, and you get 1,000. So if we don't change that 0.333333 and we just add 3 and multiply it, then it is equivalent. Okay, I hope that didn't confuse you. But this 999 was not equivalent because I dropped off that extra on the decimal. So let's look at our last one here. What do you think? Is it going to be equivalent or non-equivalent? Let's see. On the first day, you painted 150 square feet in 2.5 hours. The next day, you paint 200 square feet in 4 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and do my cross product property here. Now 2.2, I'm going to have to do some working on that, right? So let's see if we can do this one the way we did the last one. And say 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, 1/2, right? So this is we're going to add 2. So 2.5 times 200 is going to equal 500. So we have 500 on the top, and let's multiply these bottom numbers here. 4 times 150 equals 600. So is this equivalent here? No, they're not equal. So we need to change either the 200 feet or the 4 to make it equivalent. Here's where it can get a little confusing. But remember, confusing does not make it impossible, right? So I'm going to go ahead and look at what we could possibly change. Now, do you think we should change the 200 or the 4? We have a difference of 100. I'm thinking that possibly our best bet would to be to look at changing our feet. So I would look at maybe finding our daily rate, our unit rate for here. So if I were to take my calculator and divide 150 by 2.5, that would give me 60. So it would be 60 over 1, right? So I need to look at how I can get maybe 60 times 4 is going to give me 240. So if I change my feet to 240 here and redid that cross multiplication, I'm going to be doing 2.5 times 240. Whoops. 2.5 times 240, and that's going to give me 600. So that changes it to 600 is equal to 600. So if I upped my square feet for the second day to 240, then we would have equivalent fractions. Some of you guys are going, what? How did you get this? Well, I needed to get a unit rate in order to know how many hours or how much feet I would be able to paint in 4 hours to change this number appropriately. So I took my 150, and this is really a division problem, right? Divided by 2.5 or 2.5, and that gave me, for every 1 hour, I was painting 60 feet. So if I'm looking this at 4 hours, I'm going to say 60 times 4 is equal to 240. So I changed this 200 feet to 240 over 4, which is going to give me my equivalent rate. If I was to divide 240 by 4, I would get 1. I would get 60 over 1. Okay? All right, let's look at our next activity, activity 2. So here we have 1 year in a dog's life, okay? So it is said that 1 year in a dog's life is equivalent to 7 years in human life. Explain why Newton thinks he has a score of 105 points. So the logic is that the dog took this test and he got 15 on his test. So we're looking at equivalent fractions. We say that 1 year is equal to 7 years in a dog's life. So Newton says 15 points on his test is equal to 105 points on his test. So we're going to check to see if he's accurate. So we're going to take our cross products, right? And we're going to multiply 7 times 15. And that gives us 105. And 1 times 105 is obviously 105. So was he right? Yeah. So here he says he thinks his score is 98 points. So we're going to take the same idea and we're going to say if 15 points is 105. how many points would be 98? Sorry about that. Had an interruption here. Do you think that's going to work? These are kind of some big numbers, so maybe we could use 1 and 7 instead, right? So here, if we said 1 and 7, and he said he had 98 points, then how many questions did he actually get right? These numbers might be a little bit more manageable. What do you think? Yeah, so let's try these. So we're going to do our cross products. 7 times x is going to give us 7x. 1 times 98 is going to give us 98. So we can actually solve this one-step equation by using division, right, and dividing both sides by 7. So that would give us x is equal to, do I care that you use a calculator for this answer? Absolutely not. 98 divided by 7 is 14. So the question says, how many points does he actually have? He got 14 questions right on the quiz. Okay? Activity 3, again, we're comparing this to this, and they want to know, is it fair? So in your table groups, you're going to write a ratio for each sentence. Compare the ratio. If they're equal, then answer, is it fair? They want us to also explain our reasoning. So I'm going to give you time if you want to pause the video here for a few seconds and maybe work out the first problem. Actually, no. Let's do A together, and then you guys will do B and C and check it in your table groups. Okay, so it says you pay $184 for 2 tickets to a concert. So problem A is going to say $184 for 2 tickets. I paid $266 for 3 tickets. Okay, so we're going to use our cross products and do some multiplication and see if this is a fair proportion. Okay, so 2 times 266 gives us 532. And let's look at our second set of cross products. And we're going to multiply 184 times 3, and that gives us 552. So is this a fair proportion? No, it is not. You're going to end up paying more per ticket when you do 2 times 266 than if you bought, 3 times 184 than if you bought 2 for 266. It's not fair. So you guys go ahead and set up your problems for B and C and see if they are fair and explain your reasoning. Go ahead and pause the tape now and work on B and C. When you're done, we'll restart the tape and check your work. All right, so let's check B. It says 75 points for answering 15 questions correctly, so we're going to write it as 75 over 15. And the second situation is 70 points for answering 14 questions correctly. Remember, we're going to do our cross products here and see if this answer comes up okay. So we're going to say 15 times 70 equals 150. Excuse me. And let's take our second set of cross problems and say 75 times 14. And that gives us 1050. So this is a proportional statement. To figure out our unit rate, we would divide 75 by 15. So every test question is worth 5 points. Okay, let's look at C. The first situation, we're going to trade 24 football pictures for 15 baseball pictures. And in the second situation, we're going to trade 20 football pictures for 32 baseball pictures. So we're going to see if this is fair. Are they both getting a fair deal? So we'll take our cross products and multiply. So we're going to say 15 times 20. That gives us 300. And is that going to be equal to 24 times 32? Doesn't look like it is. So we have 768. Is this fair? No. I think this guy's unit rate is a little different. So we can check also by checking unit rate. 24 divided by 15 gives me 1.6 per trading card. And 20 divided by 32 gives me 0.6. So you're paying less. You're getting less for the second situation. Less per trading card. Any questions? I hope not, because I'm not here to answer them. But Miss Fructose and Miss B should be able to help you guys out with this. If you have any questions, go ahead and start your homework. It's on the board. It seems like a lot, but I recommend you just use your calculator for the cross products, and you'll be finishing the practice page in your recording practice books for Chapter 5, Section 2. Thank you.